time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Forward Corporation and T.R. McTaggart, Primal Tree Stands, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio station. So glad to have you along with us. AM and FM stations across this great state of Michigan. I am here every week for 3 hours talking about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan, and occasionally beyond. It's something I've been doing for a long time, and for the most part, it's pretty seamless. It's pretty smooth. But I have to, right off the bat, I have to make an apology. I have to apologize for something that happened last week, and it was just a mistake. Mistakes happen, and you know, when you're dealing with a lot of technical issues and you got people involved, things can happen. The wrong show was uploaded, or let me rephrase this. The wrong show appears to have been on the satellite, so many of our stations aired the wrong show. Which, if it would have been the middle of the summer, would be no big deal, but it was, one of them was obviously a Christmas-based show for time frame, and one of them was obviously a New Year's-based show. So, they say in broadcasting, don't go back and talk about something that happened in the past. Don't bring attention to it. But I feel obligated to let you know that, no, I didn't just take a week off and not record another show. I would not do that. If you didn't get a chance to hear last week's show, you can always listen to the podcast version of the show. Go to MikeAveryOutdoors.com and you can listen to it there. One of the topics I talked about was the fact that 2021 marks my 40 years in broadcasting, 30 of it in radio. And we've had a pretty good run. We've had a pretty smooth run. So, again, things happen. So just know that was not intentional. If you want to hear that show, you can go to the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Since we've last talked, and this is not as big a news as it was at first, but I am going to follow up on this and hopefully provide a little bit more insight. Darton Archery, Michigan-based Darton Archery, who had been around the archery scene for 65 years here in Michigan, was sold to Randy Kitts of Black Eagle Arrows and Conquest Archery. There was a lot of talk online about, this is a terrible move, and another family-owned Michigan-based company leaves the state. And I don't look at it that way. Rex Darlington, the owner of Darton Archery, the man behind all those very cool Darton patents, is in his 80s. The company was not going to be able to continue on forever unless something was done. So Randy Kitts came in and agreed to help out and took over the company. He says for now it will stay in Hale, Michigan. Now, what'll happen down the road, we don't know about, of course. But coming up after this break, we're going to have Randy on the show here, the Outdoor Magazine radio show, to talk about this move, what it means for Darton, what it means for the people of Hale, what it means for the archery industry. Is this just a sign of the times? And will we lose the Darton name, or will it continue to stick around? And then Ted Harpham, also of Darton, will join us to talk about their new 2021 bows. While I'm on the subject, coming up this week also, Dan Eichinger, the executive director of the DNR, will join me. A lot of things I want to talk with him about. Al Stewart talking about this is the time, and I've been thinking about this for a while now. It's in my mind, it's time to start thinking about springtime turkey season. Now, I know a lot of you are still thinking about the special late doe seasons. You're thinking about post-season scouting. My mind is turning to turkey season, and January is the time to put in for those limited tags. This week's Ask Avery segment, I've had a couple of questions about, how do you get your captain's license? This is a process I went through last year. I'm going to walk through the process, what's involved in it, and that leads into the third hour of this week's show as I talk with Bill Winowicki. And Bill is the president of the Michigan Charter Boat Association. I want to talk with him about that, but I also want to talk with him about some of the challenges. You know, they say his business, the charter boat captains, they say lost $6 million in 2020 because of COVID. Then there's also the issue of tribal negotiations, the threat of commercial fishermen going after some of the sport fish, and of course, wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar will wrap it up as well. You know, I say I'm thinking about turkey season, and I am, but last weekend, my son James and I went out, and we took down our blinds, our primal portable pop-up blinds. There are some permanent blinds on that property, which of course are permanent, so they're going to stay out there. But we went out to do some post-season scouting and take down those primal blinds. As expected, the top of the blinds were caved in because we had a fair amount of snow. And that snow sits on the blinds and then it warms up and melts and becomes heavy. And the top of the blinds then caves in and then it refreezes, which makes for an interesting situation. The thing that I was really impressed about is you've got all this weight. I don't know. I didn't put it on a scale, but I mean, a lot of weight of ice on top of these blinds. So the top caved in, didn't break anything, didn't rip the fabric, didn't break any of the poles. So what we had to do was work the ice off the top of the blind so we could fold it back up, take it out to his barn, open it back up, and dry it off. But I was very, very impressed, which makes me think of this. There is a way that you can get one of those primal tree stands, Wraith 270 see-through ground blinds, free. But you have to be on Instagram. Follow Outdoor Pregame, follow Primal Tree Stands, and follow Mike Avery Outdoors on Instagram. And January 31st, there will be a drawing where someone will win one of those Primal Wraith 270 see-through blinds. And if you don't win, you can always go to outdoorpregame.com, use the promo code Mike20 and get one for $200. Pretty good deal, I think. Pretty good deal. Speaking of blinds, in last week's show, I welcomed a new advertising partner, Shadow Hunter Blinds, to the Outdoor Magazine family. Shadow Hunter is a company that started in Michigan, family-owned. They're Michigan-based. They've now moved to Indiana, but they make these semi-permanent hard-sided blinds. We're going to be working with those folks. I don't see that as competition to the portable pop-up blinds because I think it's two different categories. I did get some disturbing news this week, and I haven't been able to verify it, but it's got me really nervous. A buddy of mine sent me an email. So this is like second or third hand, but I'll tell you how it happened. A buddy of mine sent me an email that he got from one of his friends in Ontario who is an outfitter. This outfitter claims that the Canadian government has told their outfitters do not look for the borders to be open in 2021. Which is a big deal. I don't know how these Canadian outfitters who rely on our American dollars, a lot of them Michigan dollars, we like to go there for our hunting and fishing adventures, for them to lose another year with no Michigan money coming in is going to be a huge, huge hit. How many of them can stay in business? How many of you, how many of us, how many of me could stay in business if you lost 2 years of income? So I hope and pray that's not the case. I was supposed to go to Quebec last spring on a bear hunt. Obviously couldn't do it. I was supposed to go to Ontario last August for a bear hunt. Obviously couldn't do it. And I am supposed to be in White River, Ontario right now hunting with Pete Jones on a wolf hunt, trying to take a wolf with my recurve. Obviously can't do that. I tentatively have plans to go back to Quebec for a springtime hunt this year. I am not optimistic about that. But I was hoping and hoping and hoping that I could go back to Ontario in August for that hunt. So we'll wait and see. What else? This is, it sounds kind of goofy, but I got to tell you about it because John Eberhardt brought it up in last week's show. You know, John, the whitetail whisperer. He said, Mike, have you tried these battery-operated heated vests? And I said, no, John, it sounds like a gimmick. Why would I want to do that? And he said, think about it. They run on a little portable battery. It's USB charged. There's a button on the chest that you press that turns them on and off. They have different heat levels. And he said, think about this. It allows you to wear far fewer clothes on the ice or in the blind. He says they're the real deal. So I thought, okay, if John Eberhardt is going to recommend it, I'm going to give it a try. I went out and bought one, and I'm telling you, I absolutely love it. How did we ever get by in the outdoors with all of these technological and electronic gadgets that we have today? How did we ever find fish without the side scan sonars and the down scan sonars we have today? How did we stay warm without a battery operated vest? I don't know. And finally, I made a post this week of me standing in front of a billboard, a picture of me on a billboard, talking about my dramatic weight loss. And it was kind of cool and kind of creepy to see yourself on a billboard, I'll admit that. But a buddy of mine, Bill Hoffman, you know I got a shaved head now, right? A buddy of mine, Bill Hoffman, took that picture and he superimposed Walter White over my picture. Heisenberg from Breaking Bad. I will post that too. It's pretty funny. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, let's check in with Randy Kitts, the new owner of Darton Archery, to see what he has in mind for that well-respected, long-time Michigan-based company. Will it stay that way? We'll find out that and more with Randy Kitts of Black Eagle Arrows, Conquest Archery, and Darton Archery coming up after the break. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Michigan-based Boning Archery. Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946, when Roland Boning invented Ferrultite to glue broadheads to wooden shafted arrows. 1946, well, that means 2021 is their 75th anniversary in the archery business. What a huge deal that is. Congrats to the folks at Boning Archery. They have a series of celebrations scheduled throughout the year. They make I like to say they make everything for bows and arrows except bows and arrows, pretty much. Check them out online at boning.com. That's BOHNING.com. Boning.com. Congrats on 75 years in the archery industry. You know, our great state of Michigan has a rich history of Michigan-based, family-owned, outdoor-related companies, especially in the archery industry. I mean, go back to Fred Bear, right? We have been a hotbed of innovation and quality production in the outdoor industry for as long as I've been in this business and well before that. So that's one reason why it was such a big deal here this past week when the word came out that Michigan-based Darton Archery, who has also been in the archery business for 65 years, something like that, had been sold to Randy Kitts. Now, Randy is a guy who owns Black Eagle Arrows and Conquest Archery, and it caused quite a stir. Now, some people said, hey, it's a great move. Some people said, oh, no, Darton's going to be gone from Michigan. So I thought, you know what? Let's go right to the source. Let's get Randy Kitts, the new owner of Darton Archery, on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk more about it. Randy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Mike. How are you, buddy? Thanks for having me.
Hey, listen, a pleasure, and congrats on the acquisition of Darton Archery. What a big deal this is.
Yeah, no, it's a huge deal for us. I mean, it's been a little bit in the making, but we're super excited about the opportunity that Darton provides to us, and obviously, we provide a really good opportunity for Darton with our dealer network. We have 1,400 dealers. I think we're in 40 or 50 countries, so we've got a pretty good network to get the name out there and really grow the business for sure. So it's super exciting.
Oh, so that was my next question. Do you think you can actually increase the national footprint of Darton through this move?
Yeah, we've already increased it, and I think we'll increase it exponentially. We've got a lot of work to do to get production ramped up, and we got a lot of great things in the works. But undoubtedly, we will definitely expand the footprint for Darton, all across the U.S. As well as Canada and Europe and many other countries that we have a really big footprint in. There's no doubt that we'll see Darton popping up all over world podiums. I mean, we got Jimmy Lutz on board. I think he's fourth in the world, and he's shooting them. So we'll see him on the world stage, competing and winning with Darton. So it's exciting.
Speaking of production, that Darton facility, that Darton factory in Hale, has been around for a long time, but as a result of that, it's kind of, it's not a modern facility, and there is some concern, Randy, that you will look at that and go, hey, we got to move this down to Georgia with our other plants.
Today I'll say there's absolutely no chance, and tomorrow there's no chance. It'd be a really laborious task to take all that and move it to Georgia. And honestly, just being honest, the tenure there is about 30 years average, and you're not getting that knowledge to Georgia. And so, no, that's not even in the cards. It's not in the cards today or tomorrow. It's going to stay in Michigan. We're going to keep producing bows right where it's at. We're actually going to expand on bows where it's at. We've hired people. I think we hired a gentleman yesterday. We hired another one last week, and we hired a few about a month ago. And, we'll continue to hire to fill our needs and employ, Michigan-based employees. And, it's run from a company in Georgia. I think we're registered as a foreign entity, they call it, in Michigan because it's a Georgia company. But it's staying right where it's at. We're not moving that. I promise you, we're not moving it.
What was the strength of Darton? What drew you to that company? What made you interested in the first place?
I think one of the first bows I had was a Darton. I'm originally from Ohio. I spent 40 years in Ohio. So I'm originally from Ohio. One of my first bows was a Darton Maverick and a Darton Cyclone were the first two, actually, because of my own stupidity. With the Maverick, I ended up getting a Cyclone. I was in the parking lot, got a new bow. I got married in 97, so I got me a new Darton Maverick, super cool bow, and I was out there just pulling it back, thinking I was slick, and I derailed it. I know exactly what I did today. The limb come off, whacked me across the head. It was something to behold, I can tell you that. And I called Darton. I sent it off to them, and they fixed it and sent it back to me, and they asked some questions, and they realized my draw length was too long, and they sent me a Cyclone, which was a little bit longer draw. And, man, that was one of the favorite bows I had for 10 years. And as far as Darton goes, that was a great customer experience side. I'll never forget it. When I started Black Eagle, they were one of the first companies that became an OEM customer for us. They've sold our Executioner bolts in their crossbow arrows in their crossbows for, I think, going on 9 years now. And so always had an affinity with them. Thought they had great machining, great engineering. The fit and finish on their bows is, to me, second to none. I went down there and met the employees. Really didn't know why I was there probably at first, but I got to meet a lot of the people there, and I thought, man, what a dedicated group of employees. What if? And so I just prayed about it. I sought God's counsel. I had some really wild experiences that kind of solidified that, and I'm sure your viewers don't want to hear about it, but the old saying, the Lord works in mysterious ways, was never more prevalent, and two trips specifically to Michigan that were pretty wild. So I just kind of knew, I know in my Noah, that it was the right thing to do, and off we went.
All right, we've talked about the upside, Randy. What are the weaknesses? What are the first things, some of the first things you want to improve or fix or change at Darton?
Well, we gotta really work on production. That's our bottleneck, is getting bows made and get bows out. I mean, at one time, Darton made a lot of bows, and over time, I think we're set in our ways. This has always worked, and what's out there, it may be different, but it isn't any better. the bows don't shoot better, and so they kind of got stuck in a rut. And so we're really going to work on ramping up production, getting that going. I want to change some limb widths just to be transparent. We're going to work on some of those things. But the bows we have shoot really, really well. We got a new crossbow coming out. It's amazing. It's going to be in the 420 club at a really good price point, 420 feet per second. And we'll have another one around 370. They're going to be, fairly small, compact, reverse draw. We got those things going. We'll have another one probably out mid-year, possibly. We'll see how things go. But our bows shoot really, really good. And so, everybody that shot one has had nothing but, really good reviews to say about it. Lancaster PJ was great enough to grab our Vegas and our Tempest target bows and did an awesome review, very impressed. And so, they work really good. But we're going to make some subtle changes, and then we'll just work on, you can't do it all at once. Like I said, in a couple of things last week with Lancaster, and I think we did a podcast or something with someone else. Big wheels turn slow, and you want to make sure that everything we do, we're doing right. And, we're making consistent changes to our platform to give the archer a better experience. I think what we have shoots really, really good. I've always been impressed. And to me, as long as they put the arrow down the middle, everything else you can work on.
What about the Darton name? Is it going to stick around, or are we going to hear about a Black Eagle bow or a Conquest bow in place of it?
No, it's going to be Darton Archery. I just changed the name to a limited liability company from Darton Archery, Inc. That was the easiest thing to do. Again, I like the Darton brand. It's just, I got a really good dealer down in Virginia, in Harpham Archery, and Farron's just a super good guy. And he said that, one of his other reps came in and he had some bows on the shelf. He had some Dartons. He goes, "Oh my gosh, you're carrying the best bow no one's ever heard of." Because I shoot him, my kids shoot him, and he was a rep for a different bow company. And, and that's kind of I think the reality of it. It's maybe one of the best bows no one's ever heard of. And so we got to get it out in people's hands, get a lot more feedback, get some real-time feedback, and we're flexible, we're malleable, we can change, fairly easily. Obviously, the big wholesale changes take a little more time, but I think what we got works really, really good. I'm proud. I'm proud of what we're producing. I'm proud of what we have. Can it be better? I think all bows can be better. Will it be the best bow that someone's ever shot? It may be the best bow for them, but I don't like to use the word the best. Because I think what's best for you isn't best for me. And but life is full of choices. And you have a choice to support Darton, or you can support any other bow company that's out there. It's okay. We still be friends, and we'll get along. And at the end of the day, if you're an archer, you're an archer. It doesn't matter to me what you shoot. We'd love for you to shoot our arrows, our stabilizers, our bows. But at the end of the day, life is full of choices, and that's the ones you make.
Randy, I do think it's interesting that you say you want to help get the Darton name out there, because I've worked with Darton for more than 20 years, and I've always thought they make a great product, but again, getting that word out. So if they can get the oomph of you and your other companies behind it, it seems to me like a pretty good deal.
We're going to work hard. I can promise you. I don't know that anybody will work harder at making it a success than me, besides the fact that I'm vested into it financially. I mean, I don't like to fail. We took Black Eagle from the ground up. We started a brand new company, and I understand, dealers' trepidation, getting a new product, trying something new. I understand all of those things. It took us a long, long time to get to where we are, but you look today in 3D archery, and we're the winningest arrow company there is in 3D target archery, the winningest. On the pro podium, no one's even close. We win more podiums. I think we're either tied. We either had more podiums than every arrow company combined this year in the ASA, or we're one short. And I just got to find out what the one person was shooting, then I can make that crystal clear. But that's saying something. And but we have good Indians too. But good Indians can't win with bad product.
Well, Randy Kitts, congrats on your acquisition of Darton Archery. The website is dartonarchery.com. It'll stay dartonarchery.com. Randy, appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Of course. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right, we'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we're going to follow up on this Darton story with Ted Harpham of Darton Archery. Ted has been with Darton for a long, long time. Randy alluded to some of the new products. We'll see if we can get Ted to Let a cat out of a bag and tell us a little bit more. Coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK. That's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Tawas on two stations, WIOS AM 1480 and WIOS FM 106.9. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website, mucc.org. mucc.org. By the way, while you're on that website, you can use the promo code MIKE, all caps, M-I-K-E, promo code MIKE, and save 25% on your new membership or your MUCC renewal. mucc.org, promo code MIKE, all caps, and save 25%. How cool is that? So I want to follow up on my conversation with Randy Kitts, the new owner of Darton Archery, with a longtime Darton guy. You've heard him many times here on the show, my friend Ted Harpham. Ted, welcome back to the show. Pretty exciting time right now.
Mike, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for having us on. It's very exciting.
There was some concern, and you saw it online, people saying, oh, Michigan-based Darton is going to go away, yada, yada, yada. But listen, you're on the inside. This actually makes the company stronger, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. No, it absolutely makes it incredibly stronger. And we're not going anywhere. And I'm sure Andy has mentioned that.
Yep.
He has in many of the interviews that he's had already. Everybody's still here. Our great staff that we've had for years and years and years are here and ready to serve these dealers and customers the best we possibly can.
Randy alluded to some new bows, and normally this weekend, Ted, you well know, this weekend right now, we would be in Indianapolis or somewhere else for the ATA show, and you would be unveiling this shows. Of course, COVID had thrown a monkey wrench into that, but can you tell me what's in the works? What do you got going?
Well, Mike, I'll tell you, we've had this conversation for many, many years on new bows coming out. And this year is probably the most exciting year that I could tell you. And I've said this to you in the past for a long time.
Long time.
But this year, is nothing short of amazing. Rex Darlington, the head engineer, it's still at the helm, developing products and new products and what we have. And he has done another tremendous job putting together some new crossbows for us. Which are, we've been noted for performance over the years, and he has left no stone unturned. The crossbows that we've got coming out, we've got the new Toxin 150 RD, which stands for reverse draw. It's 13.5-inch axle to axle, Mike. That's crazy. And then when you cock it, it comes all the way down to about 9 1/4. So, I mean, literally, under 10 inches of axle to axle when the bow's cocked.
I never thought I would see Darton go to a reverse draw crossbow.
Right? Yeah, it's now it's not a reverse limb. This is a reverse draw.
What's the difference, Ted? What's the difference?
Well, we don't have the limbs coming back to us. What we have is just the cams are reversed. So you're not going to have the limb activity all pulling back towards the shooter. It's still going to be out front.
Gotcha.
So the crossbow looks almost very, very similar to what we've had, and it's just that the axle is so much narrower. So you're going to, it's going to be, like you see some of the other competition out there today, shooting really super narrow crossbows, and that's what we're going to have.
Gotcha.
Now the difference is, the Darton difference, and you've seen this over the years, is the performance level of what we're putting together based on the competition out there. We're unmatched. We're still shooting arrows that are over 400 grains. Our bows are all manufactured right here in Hale, Michigan. They're very, very quiet. We have the best anti-dry fire in the system. Our triggers that we're manufacturing here today are coming in at 2.5 to 3-point trigger pull with zero travel. And this Toxin 150 right now is performing over 425 feet per second.
Wow. Wow.
with a 400 grain arrow, and it has let off. You can still hand cock this with our rope cocker, and you can also use, we have a mechanical cocking system as well to put on it, so you can cock it two different directions. For most of the bows today that are shooting in this performance level and this design, without a winch or some kind of crank system, you're not going to be able to cock these crossbows.
So when the crossbow, and you got some compounds coming out, when are they going to be out? When can we see them?
Mike, we're in the process of building them right now. We're taking pre-orders as we speak. And so we've got lots of bows already on order. That's going. But one more quick thing, just a quick second, I wanted to talk to you really quick about our Toxin 100. Everybody's, you've seen all these bows that are out there today that are coming in at $299, $399, coming in from overseas, doing lots of crazy stuff, and they're having lots of issues with them. Well, we have now took our Toxin 100 beyond what we ever thought we could take it to. This bow is coming in with the same axle and that the Toxin 150 is, but it's going to be shooting 370 feet per second, and this bow's going to list out at around $599. So, yeah, we're pretty excited about it. We've got some new accessories that are going on the crossbows. We've got some new scopes that are coming in on the crossbows. We've got some 50 millimeter stuff coming in for guys that really, really are real serious about crossbow hunting and wanting to have the best of the best.
Well, Ted, listen, I'm real excited to see what you guys are going to come up with. I've been a long-time Darton fan for many, many years. So folks can keep an eye on this. Go to the website, dartonarchery.com, to see when these new models are announced, dartonarchery.com. Ted Harpham, congrats, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Chad Wasco checks in on ice conditions on the west side of Saginaw Bay off Linwood Beach Marina. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Caro on two stations, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. Linwood Beach Marina was the very first boat dealer that got a look at Angler Quest years ago, and they have become one of the probably the prominent Angler Quest dealer in Michigan. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Speaking of Linwood Beach, want to check in now with Chad Wasco of Linwood Beach. Chad, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Morning, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just great. Listen, as I was shooting some live stuff here in the studio, I heard from a guy this morning who was on the east side of Saginaw Bay. He was sitting on 4 inches of ice, and he was perch fishing. What do you see in there on the west side, Chad?
Well, on the west side over here, I actually went out and took an ice spud to the basin this morning and just kind of checking it out. We've probably got about that just right in the marina itself, about 2 or 3 inches. A couple good jabs with the ice spud, it goes through after that. So, I mean, it's enough to walk on for some guys, but not this guy.
Well, let's make it very clear. We're talking about ice conditions as we know them midweek. Things can change one way or another by the weekend. Please don't take our word as the gospel. I mean, check the ice yourself before you head out there, right?
Yeah, always just check the ice when you're walking around, because even when you're walking on good ice, you hit it every once in a while with a spud. You got solid ice. You walk another 5-10 feet somewhere else, it could be a soft spot. You never know, with some underwater currents and stuff like that. So, yeah, be very careful with it and always be checking it as you're walking.
Well, I know a lot of walleye anglers, and I know you folks there at Linwood Beach. Man, you're jonesing for a good ice fishing season, aren't you?
Yeah, we missed it last year. We never had a full freeze over, just with a lot of wind and just the weather in general. We never, past normal conditions where the pressure crack's always at. That seemed to be the kind of shelf life on it, where everything was just constantly breaking off. So we never got a full freeze over.
Can you get some good fishing action right up on shore? I mean, can you find walleye in 2 and 3 feet of water like you find perch sometimes?
There's guys that'll be able to do it. It's definitely not as good as like when you get a little bit farther offshore. I mean, there's definitely guys that are always trying, and you hear guys that are catching it. A lot of pike and smaller perch and stuff like that. Normally, when you're up in the shallows, not a lot of walleye activity, anyways. It seems like.
Ideally, what you want there is a good freeze, safe ice, because you want to get out there 4 or 5 miles into some deep water right there in front of the marina.
Yeah, so we need to get out there at least that, because, the normal crack where that happens, kind of where, the depth contour changes a little bit. There's a little bit of a drop-off. That's about 1.5 miles, 2 miles off. So after that, when the depth starts changing, that's kind of when the fishing starts getting a little bit better. But the trouble is if we have a lot of northeast winds or some rising temperatures that's constantly, breaking the ice off where that crack's at and blowing it back out to Huron, you can't get out there to where that deeper water you need to be in.
Once you get out there, if you get ice, what's the preferred way of catching walleye out there? Because there's some big wintertime fish out there.
Yeah, and a lot of guys, they're vertical jigging spoons, a lot of weighted stuff like that. There's other guys that are using jigging wraps. My go-to is like a moonshine-style spoon, a little bit weighted one. Some guys are using like mini little Cleos and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just a vertical jigging method, basically.
I know in past years you've kept a close eye on ice conditions by sending up your drone. Why don't you do that again this year?
Well, poke at that one a little bit. Yeah, that one, 4th of July did not agree with the drone this year. We had put on our own little mini fireworks show, and we did it the year before, and the footage turned out awesome. Well, this year, I was able to watch it through the viewfinder, but the drone didn't make it. They don't do well when they get struck by about a couple-inch mortar.
That would have been some cool video, though.
It would have been nice to recover it, there's no doubt. We got the drone back after it bounced off the seawall and into the water, so that was a total loss. But other than that, it was fun for a minute for everybody else but me.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, you're a big dealer of Angler Quest. I had Brad Dupuis of Angler Quest here on the show a couple of weeks ago. How are things going that direction? You don't have your boat shows that you would normally have this time of year. So what are you relying on? People coming into the dealership, shopping online, or what's that process this year?
Honestly, there's been a lot of networking going on this year. It's been a lot more, I guess, us as the dealer trying to make connections and, I guess, feeling out the crowd, see who's out there, who's looking for stuff, and just trying to help guys and trying to, I guess, get on the horn to get a lot of guys to commit now, if they can, to get their boats on order, because with the way everything's going right now, and not necessarily speaking for Angler Quest themselves, but there's a lot of supply chain issues out there in the world right now. And it's making it tough for not just boat manufacturers, but everybody. So if we can get these guys to commit and get orders in now, there's a chance hopefully we get them on the water this summer, because there's just a lot of unknowns that we've got going on right now with inventory and stuff like that.
Yeah, so whereas people might in the past wait till the boat shows, talk to you then, try to make a good deal then, you're saying this year don't wait till the last minute because you don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly, yeah. It's if you're thinking that you want one for this year especially, and not trying to be pressure on it or anything, but it's one of those, let's at least get it placed so we can get a build slot going, and we can make changes as we go and get it going there, but at least let's get some commitments and going from there, because it's, like I said, it could be, we could have a backed up year this year, and we just don't know when we're going to get stuff.
All right, Chad Wasco of Linwood Beach Marina, appreciate that. I will be wishing for good ice conditions for you, and the website linwoodbeachmarina.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, Dan Eichinger, Executive Director of DNR.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Forward Corporation and T.R. McTaggart, Primal Tree Stands, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us. This is a 3-hour weekly radio show aired on broadcast stations across the great state of Michigan, talking about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. A celebration of the outdoor lifestyle. And I always say the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine Radio is on your local radio station if you can. There you'll get your local news and weather and sports. Plus, the broadcast stations air the show before the podcast version is made available. But if for some reason you can't hear the Outdoor Magazine Radio show, or if they don't carry all 3 hours of the show, there is an option. You can listen to the podcast version of the show. Places to listen. MikeAveryOutdoors.com, my website, probably a good place to start. That website is a clearinghouse for all things Mike Avery Outdoors and Outdoor Magazine Radio. You can hear it on my Facebook page, on Amazon Music, on Audible. You know Audible, the audio book app on your phone. You can hear it on that as well. On that Twitter feed, on LinkedIn, on iTunes, on Google Play, on iHeartRadio, on SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, Radio.com, and I even put the podcast on YouTube. I know, it's an audio, it's sound, it's not video, but I put it on YouTube anyway. So a lot of ways to listen to the podcast version of the radio show. Also, I do monthly podcasts for Jay's Sporting Goods, Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Killer Food Plots, Polar Craft Boats, a quarterly podcast for MUCC, and we're going to kick off later this month a new monthly podcast for Shadowhunter Blinds. So a lot going on here. And regardless of what you are listening to or how you are listening to it, the fact that you're hearing my voice means a lot to me. I thank you very, very much. I do appreciate that. Kind of a real treat this week as we kick off the second hour of this week's show. We're going to check in with Dan Eichinger, the executive director or the director of the DNR. Dan is a name and a face that's been around the outdoor scene in Michigan for many, many years. And a couple of years ago now, he was named the director of the DNR, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Dan, welcome back to the show. How have you been?
Been good, Mike. Thanks for having me back on. I really appreciate it.
Hey, listen, it's always a pleasure. Has it been 2 years now? Are you kicking off your third year now?
Yeah, this is year 2. I started in January of 2019. So in some ways, this last year has been a little bit kind of like a dog year, but it's hard. In some regards, it feels like, the 2 years has gone by really quickly, and in other ways, it's hard to believe it's only been 2 years.
Well, listen, if this last year didn't put some gray hairs on your head, I don't know what will.
Yeah, it was a challenging year, and it was challenging for everybody. This has just been a difficult year for everybody, no matter what you do or where you are, or, what kind of walk of life you have. It's been a really tough year for a lot of people. But we've managed through. We'll get through it. But yeah, it's definitely been very different than what we thought 2020 was going to look like at this time last year, for sure. Yeah.
When you look around at what's going on in the state, what's going on in the DNR, what's going on with our natural resources, hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping, what gets your attention? What are you proud of? What keeps you up at night?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that was really interesting that we saw this year in particular, we have talked, all of us in the hunting and fishing community for years, we've talked about, what do we do about this, sort of slow decline that we've seen in participation in hunting and fishing. And, there's been a lot of really good thinking that's been done, a lot of brain power has been put towards how do you kind of crack the code, solve that puzzle, and get people sort of reconnected with hunting and fishing, trapping, being outdoors, finding nature, that kind of thing. And this year we saw, and it started in the spring with our turkey license sales. And when we sold more turkey licenses last spring than we had since probably the year 2000 or the late 1990s. And that trend just kind of continued really across category throughout
throughout the season. We sold a lot of deer licenses this year. Our first-time license buyers are up, I think, 67% year over year. And so, the real takeaway for me, Mike, was that, I think for our core users, our core license buyers, folks who, hunt and fish every single year, they've got a lot of interest in that respect. Those are always folks like you and I who wake up and are like, I'm going to make time to go hunting and fishing. I'm going to prioritize that activity in my life. And I think what we saw this year were, by virtue of the fact that, a lot of our activities were limited for one reason or another, we had a lot of people who woke up and they're like, hey, I have time to go hunting and fishing. A little bit different. I'm going to make time to go hunting and fishing, or I have time to go hunting and fishing. And I think what we've seen are a lot of those folks who kind of woke up and realized, hey, I've got time to do this kind of thing. Maybe the demands on my kids' time with after school sports being disrupted or what have you, or, our typical social calendar looks a lot different this year than it normally does. We got time to do these things now. And I think those are the folks that we're finding that are kind of reconnecting with hunting and fishing. And now the real challenge for us is going to be, how do we keep those folks in the fold and in the tent and active with those things, now that they've kind of rekindled that interest. So that, I think, is one of the, if there's a positive kind of takeaway for this year, that's one of the things that I have gotten kind of excited about, is that we've got a real opportunity now with these folks who found their way back to hunting and fishing and found their way back to the outdoors.
And how do we keep them involved? I mean, one of the things I'm hearing from people is, look, we've got to make the outdoors more, I don't want to say more accessible, but less complicated. Our hunting and fishing rules and regulations sometimes seem very convoluted, and you got to check the guide to make sure you're in the right area at the right time, doing the right thing. I mean, is that a factor? Do we need to simplify our hunting and fishing rules, regulations?
I think that's certainly part of it. I mean, we've been kind of on an effort with our deer regulations to try and make them less complex than what they have been, to try and make deer hunting opportunity, particularly on the antlerless side and particularly in lower Michigan, much more portable than it has been, to try and simplify those regulations. And, the push-pull with the complexity of regulations is that everybody says that everybody wants complexity and simplicity except where they hunt, we've kind of seen this as we go through like the commission meetings and some of our public engagement. A lot of folks saying like, hey, let's make the regulations super simple, but where I hunt, things are a little bit different. And so we need to do it this way, or we need to do it that way, or we can only allow this, or we can only allow that. And that's kind of how you end up with regulations that are knitted together, that are pretty that can be kind of complex and difficult to follow. And that's going to be, I think, a constant challenge for us, is that, some of the rules and regulations and that kind of thing that have evolved over time, and evolved for a good reason, because we had big numbers of hunters. We had a lot of competition in the woods. Well, like it or not, the number of hunters that we have is smaller as a cohort than it was 20 years ago. And so that should cause us to look at, some of the regulations that we have that govern hunting and say, given the number of people that we have participating in hunting today, how important is this regulation any longer? Maybe it was necessary when we've got, 800,000 deer hunters. When we've got 500,000 deer hunters, do we need to keep that regulation? And so those are a lot of the discussions that we're trying to work through now, but it's tough. So, regs are a part of it. Public land opportunity is another big part of it. Making sure that people have places where that they can go and hunt, that they've got access to them, that they're open for hunting. That's always going to be a key priority for us supporting particularly new hunters. And then thinking about ways that we can connect hunters with learning opportunities or in educational support and mentors and that kind of thing, so that an individual feels confident going out and trying turkey hunting for the first time, or knowing if you want to be a small game hunter, knowing what to look for if you want to chase grouse and woodcock, or if you want to go after cottontails, whatever it might be, we got to really be able to kind of feed that hunger for knowledge, especially for someone who's just getting started out in hunting and fishing. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to get lost in if you don't know exactly where to look to get information about how to be successful early on. So those are some of the things I think we can churn out, and that our partners can help churn out as well to support that new cohort of hunters that we have.
We're talking with DNR Director Dan Eichinger here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. Dan, we got to take a break, but hang tight. I have a lot more things to talk about. I want to talk about the idea of a wolf hunt. I want to follow up on a conversation or a presentation I heard you give about a year and a half ago about the importance of our state parks and some things that you wanted to change there. Deer management, CWD, and lots more as we wrap up our conversation, continue our conversation with DNR Director Dan Eichinger. The website, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Coming up a little bit later, Al Stewart from the DNR talking about springtime turkey season and this week's Ask Avery segment. Coming up in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS, 1320 AM. And you can hear us in Newberry on WNBY, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Speedy Blaze. Michigan-based Speedy Blaze is a safe, clean, water-resistant, insect-resistant alternative to firewood. It's safe to cook over because it's made from recycled hardwood. You can use it in your fire pit, your bonfire, fire pit, your backyard grill, your fireplace. It's a pretty cool product. Anybody can make a fire with Speedy Blaze. Check them out online at speedyblaze.com. That's speedyblaze.com. We give away Speedy Blaze every Wednesday night for a while on Wednesday Night Live. So keep an eye out for that. Right now, we're talking with DNR Director Dan Eichinger. The website for the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Dan, before the break, we were talking about the increase in numbers of hunters and anglers. So does that mean the department, with all those increased sales, you're flush with cash now? I mean, that should solve any funding problems, right?
Well, I mean, we're gonna net out okay. I mean, obviously two things. We had, we're going to have a little bit more revenue through the increased license sales, and then obviously we're under some pretty big spending restrictions this year. So, I think in the short term we're okay. I mean, I think long term we still have to figure out how we're going to sort of durably and sustainably fund conservation in the state of Michigan. I mean, for years and years, that has all been primarily done on the back of our license buying public. Our hunters and anglers are the ones who have paid the freight for conservation for over 80 years in this state. And, I think we're going to continue to be challenged to figure out ways that we can continue to support all of that work, but not have to depend solely on our hunters and anglers to do the lion's share of the funding for that. So, we still have that. There's still kind of that long-term question out there, but in the short term, we're okay for right now.
I heard you give a presentation a while ago at the MUCC convention in Houghton Lake, and you were talking about our state park system, what a gem it is, what a jewel it is, but how it's time to revamp the system. Any progress there, or has CWD and the constrictions there put that all on hold? COVID and the restrictions there put it on hold.
Yeah, COVID. Everyone's going to get kind of sick of using COVID as an excuse for things, but this year was just really disruptive from that standpoint. I mean, our ability even to get like our campgrounds up and running and ready to roll, we were delayed a little bit for the start of that. I mean, this year was just profoundly challenging from that standpoint. So, and the other thing I should say is that some of that capital investment that we want to do to sort of reinvest in that system was also complicated a bit by the fact that we've been dealing with, we have to deal with the effects of high water. A lot of our parks are in sort of riparian areas or coastal areas. And so as a consequence of that, a lot of our planning and a lot of sort of our infrastructure work was designed to try and harden and provide some resiliency in those facilities against the problem of high water. But you're absolutely right. I mean, that need for us to ensure that system is, functions at a high level, that we're making the investments in it, that we need to make sure that those facilities are going to serve the public for the next 100 years. We just had the 100th anniversary of the state park system here a couple of years ago. And, going forward, we have to be able to invest in that system. We've got some old facilities there. We've got some old infrastructure. And for those to continue to serve 27 million visitors a year, we've got to figure out a way to not keep kind of falling behind on the list of maintenance projects that we have to do. So that's still very much a high priority for us. And, this year was just so disruptive. We really had to just kind of get done what we could get done to make sure we could open the parks, and had to forestall or delay a little bit our look at some of those long-term investments that we can make to make sure that we have an efficient and highly functioning system for that long-term kind of work that we need to do.
What about the status of a wolf hunt? For a long time, people said the DNR needs to have a wolf hunt, not realizing it was out of your hands. It was in the hands of the feds. Now that roadblock is down. Anything going on behind the scenes, Dan?
Yeah, there's a couple things that are happening. So obviously the Fish and Wildlife Service, they delisted wolves. They issued a new rulemaking, which is the process that they use to take critters off the Endangered Species Act. Did that back in October. That went into effect actually on Monday. So on the 4th of January, wolves have been delisted in the state of Michigan. So, the process for a wolf hunt is really that's kind of a process that's in the hands of the Natural Resources Commission. Sort of nested underneath that, we have a wolf management plan that needs to be updated, and we're in the process of updating that management plan. So I think that's one of the important kind of preconditions that we need to resolve, as we contemplate and as the commission contemplates putting a wolf hunt together. The other thing I think that's important just for folks to sort of be aware of is that the biological status of wolves, clearly they have recovered. Clearly we have recovery for wolves in the Great Lakes. The legal status, I think, is going to be a little bit trickier. And what I mean by that is, over the years and through, many rounds of litigation on the Endangered Species Act, there is, I would call it kind of a lot of sort of legal or judicial scar tissue on the Endangered Species Act for how you get animals delisted like wolves. And so the process and the arguments that the Fish and Wildlife Service and the Department of Interior use to delist are all good and appropriate when you look at them from a biological standpoint. And the department supported and does support delisting wolves. My fear is that, because of the history of litigation that we've had on wolves and the Endangered Species Act, that it's going to be ripe for legal challenge. And we've seen this happen every other time we've tried to delist wolves in Michigan, that almost inevitably there's a legal challenge that gets filed in federal court, and then the legal status of wolves is kind of once again up in the air. I'm absolutely predicting that that's going to happen again. In fact, shortly after the Fish and Wildlife Service announced their intent to delist, some of the same groups that we've seen that have litigated this issue every time filed a notice of intent to sue. So I think one of the things we're going to have to pay really close attention to over the coming months is sort of what the legal status of wolves is and how that may change over the course of 21. That'll factor a little bit, I think, into what the commission ultimately does. But at the end of the day, we're going to manage wolves according to our management plan. We have state management authority over them. And so they have been delisted, and we're going to continue to manage in that posture. But I think it's just important to know that there's some other things that are kind of at play that may end up changing over the course of the year. And we'll just have to kind of read and react and respond as those things happen.
And that's interesting, because last year when we talked and I brought up the possibility of a sandhill crane hunt, you told me basically the same thing, that the legal fight surrounding it maybe in some cases just isn't, maybe the department doesn't have the heart or the budget or the resources to fight a fight like that right now?
Well, in the case of wolves, it's some of the same sort of the humane societies, the Center for Biological Diversity, Defenders of Wildlife. Those folks are going to sue the federal government and say this was an inappropriate delisting, and they'll have their reasons, and they'll believe that they're good reasons, and that'll ultimately get litigated in court. What we're going to do as a department is we're going to manage wolves as they have been delisted as of Monday. If the commission wants to pursue and explore a hunting season, we'll do all the work that we need to do as staff to provide them with the information that they need to do that. But I think it's just important for folks to understand that the delisting that happened on Monday is not the final. It's really not the final chapter here. It's just we're in the early innings of a ball game that we've seen played out, about a half a dozen times in Michigan, where different delisting attempts have been made. They've been litigated. And so, the legal status of wolves is kind of like light switch on, light switch off. And I think we just sort of need to buckle up and settle in for that to happen again this time.
Dan, a couple of minutes that we have left. I want to talk about the consent decree negotiations. We haven't heard anything about the negotiations with the tribes at all. Is that because there's a legal gag order? Is there something going on there as well, or is this all on hold right now?
No, negotiations have been going on, but there is all of the parties signed a confidentiality agreement at the beginning of the negotiations. So you won't ever hear, you certainly won't hear us or any of the other parties shouldn't be disclosing any of the conversations that we have or any of the negotiations. What I can tell you is that, I think most folks know the consent decree was set to expire in August of 2020. There have been 2 extensions that have been granted by the judge because obviously, negotiations are continuing. That process isn't done yet. Our most recent extension that we got in December extended the current decree until the end of June of 21. So, we continue to make progress. It's been a little slow for a whole variety of reasons, but not the least of which has been COVID and just disruption to our ability to meet. But progress is being made, and we're hopeful that at some point in the not too distant future, we'll have a new decree that we can enter into.
One last question for you. Do you sense at your level there in Lansing, as the head of the department, that there's a certain percentage of hunters and anglers who just don't have faith or don't trust or like the DNR? Do you feel that? Do you have a response to that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, the hunting public is diverse. There's a lot of opinions, a lot of people who have particular knowledge and expertise. They see things from their deer blind or their deer duck blind or from their fishing boat, and they're not wrong. So you could have someone who, hunts a piece of property and says, I didn't see any deer. And they're not wrong. They might not have seen any deer. I think a lot of times where we maybe miss each other is when we talk about maybe the scale that we're looking at things. So, I think it's just, this area, like anybody's, avocation, their recreation, there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of room for difference of opinion. And there is within the professional community as well. I mean, professionally, we have disagreements about what the right thing to do is or what the wrong thing to do is. And that's just human nature and that's human behavior. And that's the nature of being a public agency. We hear from folks who agree with what we do on some things. We certainly hear from folks who don't agree with us. That's part and parcel. That's the way that this system works.
Dan, listen, it was unfair of me to ask you that last question when we had so little time, but I appreciate your time. DNR Director Dan Eichinger, the website michigan.gov/DNR. Appreciate your time, Mr. Director. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name's Mike Avery. Glad to have you along with us. He's saying call him. I think he wants you to call him on his other number. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM. That's 580 AM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM. Oh, he's calling me. I'll decline there. We're playing phone tag with Al Stewart, 660 AM, and our newest affiliate, WMIC FM 95.3. Those are both in Sandusky, and you can hear us in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Suspension Max. Michigan-based Suspension Max is the company I went to when it was time to level my 2021 Garber Silverado Chevy pickup. They did a great job. They put a 2.5-inch lift in the front and an 1.5 inches in the rear. It brought the truck up, allowed me to put bigger tires under it. It's a nice level ride now. It looks great. Check them out online at suspensionmax.com, and Max is MAXX, suspensionmax.com. I want to turn our attention now, as I already have in my mind, to the springtime turkey season with Al Stewart of the DNR. He is their upland game bird specialist and a hardcore upland bird hunter and an expert turkey hunter. Al, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, great. Good talking with you, Mike. Gosh, this is the new year.
I know it.
Talk turkeys.
Oh, it's funny, Al. The minute I walked away from my last deer hunt for the season, I started thinking about springtime turkey hunting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's the snow on the ground. It's hard to get your mind set there, but this is the time, and there's nothing greater than spring turkey hunting, that's for sure.
Oh, man, I absolutely love it. Now, isn't January the month to apply if you want one of the limited tags?
Yeah, so the time to apply is, right now, January 1 through February 1, and that's for, some of the limited quota hunts. And there's about 48,000 of those licenses out there. But, as an example, there are some units that only have 10 licenses available, for the hunt period. So, some go faster than others. And if there's an area that in the past, you've seen that the licenses are gone when you want them, then you apply. If you want to take your chances and get a leftover, we provide the opportunity for you to do that as well.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not sure this is the year to take your chance with the numbers we saw of turkey licenses sold last spring.
Yeah, well, this COVID-19 thing has really gotten people, out of the house. I don't know whether it's cabin fever or, just people bought more hunting and fishing licenses this year than they have for, a while. And so a lot of interest in getting outdoors, and nothing better to social distance than going hunting. So so yeah, there's a big interest in turkey hunting. Kind of as an example, last year for spring turkey hunting, we had 105,000 people who bought a license.
Wow.
Compare that to 2016, and we had 91,000 people who did that. But you see it in the deer license, see it in the fishing licenses. So again, lots of interest in getting out there. So if there's a place you really want to go and hunt, apply and for this, and you'll the application period, like I said, is right now, and then on March 1st, you find out whether you were successful in the drawing. And if you were unsuccessful, then we give you the opportunity for people who did apply to pick up any leftovers starting on March 8th, which is a Monday, about 10 o'clock. And, but you don't have to despair either. If you didn't apply at all, starting March 15th, you can pick up any leftover that's out there, period, for any of the units.
It's to the point these days, if you want to hunt turkeys in Michigan these days, you can.
Oh, yeah, and you and I remember not too long ago, really, that if you didn't draw a license, if you weren't successful in the drawing, you did not hunt turkeys in Michigan. You just didn't. There wasn't an opportunity for you. So, through the years, we've had the opportunity to make a lot of changes and, have it where people can get out and hunt turkeys. We give you a lot of choices, so it's all about choices, and so you can go and do that. But boy, I remember, again, not all that long ago, if I wasn't successful, then I had to go to another state if I wanted to hunt turkeys.
Yeah.
And, Missouri was a place that, was always a good place to go. But, now Michigan is a really good place to go. We're fourth in the nation for wild turkey harvest. So we have one of the longest seasons in the country. We start on April 17th, depending on, how you choose your date.
Is it a Saturday opener again this year?
It's a Saturday opener again. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
I know why you did it, right? I know why you did it to get more people out there. But you always say you want the springtime turkey hunt to be a quality hunt. And I'll tell you, Al, with the number of people in the woods last year, I heard more shots the opening day of turkey season than I did the opening day of firearm deer season.
Yeah, I hear you. And that was the reason we had a Monday opener. It wasn't to stop people from hunting, eliminate it. It was just to provide, the spring turkey hunting season. The intent of the spring turkey season is to provide opportunity and maintain high quality hunting. That's what turkey hunters wanted. And there are very few hunting activities where you can, you're almost guaranteed of that, no matter whether you're hunting on public or private lands. And so, we made some changes.
Al, listen, I'm batting zero here. I had to cut the director off, and now I've got to cut you off. Al Stewart from the DNR. Appreciate your time. Michigan.gov/DNR. I'm not doing so well. You can hear, you can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC, AM and FM, 1450 AM. That's 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ, 1090 AM. The Ask Avery segment here on Outdoor Magazine is brought to you every week by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way the Ask Avery segment works is each week on the show, I set aside this part of the show to answer your questions. You can send them to me in an email. Send them to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Or send me a private message on any of the social media outlets. And sometimes these questions are directed to me. Sometimes they are questions you want me to ask of others. But this time, Greg Adams sent me an email. And he says, "Hey, Mike, I heard you talk about getting your charter captain's license. I've been thinking about doing that for a long time and hoping you can give me some details on how to do it. Is it hard? How long does it take? And how much does it cost?" And this will actually lead into our third hour as we talk with Bill Winowicki, the president of the Michigan Charter Boat Association. Yeah, I did get my captain's license last year. There are there are different types of licenses. You can get what used to be called a six-pack. In fact, I think it is still called a six-pack. And that allows you as a charter captain to take out 6 people plus the crew. But I didn't get that one. I went a step beyond that. I got what's called a 25-ton master. Now, there are 25, 50, and 100-ton masters. The class is the same. The training is the same. The only difference is the hours that you are documented on the water. To get my 25-ton master, if I remember right, I had to document 360 days on the water, and 90 of those days had to be in the past 3 years. So that's kind of a process right there of trying to figure out, I would look at my calendar. I would look at my social media posts, say, okay, when was I on the water? How long was it for? And you got to document that all. You have to get your TWIC card from the TSA. And that's a transportation worker card. And I think if I remember right, there's a background and you have to pay a fee for that. You have to go through first aid training, which makes sense. If you're going to have people on your boat, you want to be trained in first aid and pay a fee for that. You have to have a physical and a drug test and pay a fee for that. And then you have to pass your Coast Guard exam. And if I remember right, you have to pay a fee for that. When that's all done, once you've passed the exam, and I'll tell you what, the exam is, I thought it was brutal. The navigation part of it was really, really pretty tough. There's a lot of memorization. It was pretty involved. I went through a company called Great Lakes Charter Training, GLC training.com, glctraining.com. I took that class because it was a week or a 9-day intensive class. It was many hours a day in the classroom. Captain Mel Stackpool started this company, and my class was taught by Captain John Littlefield. And I'm very pleased with them because one of the reasons I took that class is they will guarantee, well, for one thing, they give you the class, and then they can also give you the Coast Guard exam. You don't have to go to Cleveland to take it. And you don't have to try to figure out this whole thing on your own, which to me would be impossible. So with the guys I went with, they guarantee you'll pass your Coast Guard exam. So I went through that whole process, enjoyed the class immensely, took the test, and passed it. Lo and behold, I passed it. So then you get your certificate from whoever you took the class from. Yeah, I passed the class. Okay, but then what's next? Then you've got to submit the paperwork. And there is a lot of paperwork, a lot of hoops you want to jump through. They don't make it easy. But isn't that what you want? I mean, if you're going to be taking people on the water for hire, they want people who are going to be serious about it, right? And there was a fee with the paperwork. So I think my class was $1,000. And I think the other assorted costs were probably about $400. So I think I've got about $1,400 into that license. Now, who needs the license? Anybody who is going to be taking people on the water for hire, or anybody who's going to be doing a commercial operation on the water. So I got my 25-ton master and my towing endorsement, so I could technically run a towboat if I wanted to. Who needs a license? Anybody who's going to be taking people on the water for hire. That's a charter captain, a fishing captain, a dive boat, a sightseeing boat, a tow boat, anybody who's going to be on the water for hire. What am I going to do with mine? I'm not taking people out on charter fishing trips, although I do take a lot of people on the water. I just don't charge them. But I thought it made sense for me to be licensed, be legit, and be covered to be a licensed captain. So that's why I did it. And again, I highly recommend the folks at Great Lakes Charter Training, glctraining.com, glctraining.com. They did a great job for me. They have a series of classes coming up across the state. They also have an online option these days as well. So check them out. And once again, a big thank you to my friends at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. If you have a question for me, send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com or hit me up on any of the social media outlets. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we'll talk more about this whole captain's license, fishing in Michigan, and much more with Captain Bill Winowicki, who is the president of the Michigan Charter Boat Association, coming up in hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Forward Corporation and T.R. McTaggart, Primal Tree Stands, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we we're firmly into 2021 now, aren't we? And what does that mean? What does that mean for you? And let's just look at it from an outdoor perspective, because there's a lot of different ways we could look at it, right? For me personally, I've taken some of my goals that I had for 2020 that did not accomplish, and I never set resolutions because resolutions are made to be broken. I set goals. And I had some goals for this year that I didn't get to accomplish. One of them was taking a doe with my recurve, and I didn't get a chance to do that. So I will try to do that now in 2021. I will try to shoot a turkey with my recurve in 2021. I don't think I'm going to be able to get a Michigan bear tag this year. I was hoping I could go back to Ontario, but now there's a question about whether the Canada borders will be open this year at all. But I can set more fishing related goals because I think it's a pretty safe bet I'll be on the water. I will spend as absolute much time as possible on Saginaw Bay, my beloved Saginaw Bay, chasing walleye on the Angler Quest. And my goal for this year was to spend as much time out there as I could to increase the number of hours that I was on the water, and I did this year. I try to spend as much time out there as possible. I'm one of those guys who is, nobody loves it more than I do. But there are a lot of people who are far better anglers than I am because I don't take the time to pay attention to things like I should. You've heard some of these guys on the show, Mark Martin, Mark Romanek, Lance Valentine, some of these guys who are on the show. I mean, they've got it dialed in. I don't have that ability. And even though I did get my captain's license, my charter captain's license last year, that's one reason why I'm not going to be running charters. I just don't think I'm a good enough fisherman. I got my captain's license just to cover me when I take people out on fun trips or for charity giveaways or whatever. But I have so much respect for the people who are out there day in and day out, grinding it out, sometimes in the heart of the summertime doing 2-a-day trips. They've got to catch fish, even when the fishing is tough. They've got to show their clients a good time, even when conditions are bad. And when I got my captain's license, I actually joined the Michigan Charter Boat Association. Not again because I'm going to be a working captain, just I wanted to be a part of that group. Bill Winowicki, Captain Bill Winowicki, is the president of the Michigan Charter Boat Association. And he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Captain, welcome to the show. How are you? Cap, welcome to the show. How are you?
I says, I'm doing fine, Mike.
I got you. We got you now. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
Great. Got out on the ice a little bit this weekend. Got a few bluegill. Enjoyed the time off, but after the first year, things are starting to pick up again as far as all the goings on with our fishery.
So even though you spend all summer out there on Lake Michigan, this time of year you're still out chasing fish. You're pretty hardcore.
I go from big fish to the little ones. I really love to fish bluegill through the ice.
You talked about things starting to heat up. Now, I think of you as a big water captain. Your charter, if I remember right, it's called What a Bite, and it's whatabite.com. Is that the website?
Yes.
So I wouldn't think you'd get fired up till April or May, yet you say things are starting to heat up. What's going on, Bill?
Well, we're right in the middle of the Travelers Cree negotiations with the 5 tribes, the federal government, the state of Michigan, and the Coalition to Protect Michigan Resources. I spoke with Amy Trotter at MUCC, and as soon as we get our new legislators sworn in, we're going to go back to working on the 3 bills on commercial fishing. And then we've got the discussions of salmon plants and stuff in Lake Michigan. There's always something.
Well, yeah, now I see what you're saying. There is always something, and a group like the Michigan Charter Boat Association, I got to believe you carry some weight.
Yeah, we do. One thing I do give the DNR a lot of respect for, I mean, if I call Jim Dexter or anybody in the DNR, always return phone calls, always cordial, and always an open ear, which is fantastic.
Are they being the DNR, the state, are they doing a good job with our salmon fishery these days?
I just got word here the other day, I'm on the Lake Michigan committee too, that due to Travel Cree and the workings of the Travel Cree, we're supposed to get predator prey equivalents of like 230,000 king salmon planted in Lake Michigan extra this year. And due to the negotiations, and anything that the DNR does has to be approved by the tribal community. They're considering planting these 230,000 kings south of the tribal ceded waters, which would put them all south of Grand Haven. So it's a discussion being had at the present time.
I would think this goes against what the department has been trying to do lately with cutting their plants because they say of the lack of the forage base.
Well, they didn't do a steelhead egg take last spring due to COVID. So they're giving us this opportunity of equivalents of king salmon, which I think is 2.5 steelhead per 1 king salmon, to do a one-time plant of kings in Lake Michigan. And after last year, last summer was the lowest year of salmon in Lake Michigan because of the major cuts due to the predator-prey imbalance. It was 3 years earlier is when we took the biggest cuts ever on the salmon plants.
Were the fish bigger? I know there were fewer fish. Were they bigger last year, though, Bill?
Oh yeah, there were a lot fewer, but they were bigger. The alewife have taken a little bit of an uptake up, so the forage base is going up, which is a good thing.
Would you guys in the Michigan Charter Boat Association, would you rather see more smaller fish or fewer big fish?
The charter business would like to see more smaller fish and fewer big fish. Because, you hook into a large king salmon, you spend a long time catching that, and you got 4 or 5 people, probably little kids on a boat, and they all want to catch a fish. So more opportunity is what we would look for. But we still have to work within the guidelines of the predator-prey for the lakes.
I see what you're saying, though, because for people who don't spend a lot of time out there, a 10-pound king to them could be the fish of a lifetime. A 30-pound fish is more than many of them even want to deal with.
Yeah, no, you get a novice fisherman, you hook them up to 30 pounds of king. A lot of times they hand the pole off because they can't handle a fish for that long a period of time. And most of your charter industry, especially my part of the lake here, is their families. Taking their kids out for fun. And those kids all want to catch a fish.
What port are you out of, Bill?
I run out of Glen Arbor. All it is a steel dock right downtown Glen Arbor. But I fish around the Sleeping Bear Dunes, Manitou Islands. It's a beautiful trip. It's not crowded. And the fishery is pretty decent.
Yeah, you could not find a prettier place to fish.
Oh, I got the prettiest charter trip in the state of Michigan.
All those kings that they want to put down south of Grand Haven, will they work their way north? Will you guys see them on northern Lake Michigan as well, or not?
Fish have fins. They swim where they go, and they know where the grocery store is. So wherever there is dinner is where the fish will be.
But based on past years, will you see a migration that far to the north?
We don't get as many migrating fish up north because it seems like the alewife population and all the salmon migrate to the southern part of the lake. If you noticed, like all the coho that are planted in Platte River, that spring fishery down on the state line, there is a phenomenal coho fishery. And those are all fish that are planted in Platte River.
I did not realize that.
They all migrate north. And the honest truth is, the Manitou Islands, we don't start seeing kings until middle to late July. And, there are fish that swim around. Like I see, if there's a pile of bait up north here, and the fish follow the bait around, wherever dinner is at is where fish is going to be, especially a king salmon as much as they eat. So, but we do need some plants up north in order to carry us through and take a little bit of pressure off the lake trout so that we can stay within the guidelines of the tribal decree.
We're talking with Captain Bill Winowicki of Watta Charters, WATTA, Watta Charters. His website, wattabite.com, but he's also president of the Michigan Charter Boat Association. Their website, michigancharterboats.com, michigancharterboats.com. We've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show, but when we come back, a lot more to talk with about Captain Bill, about the fishery, about the job of a charter captain. What's it really like? I mean, it looks like a lot of fun from the outside, right? But I always say, be careful what you wish for. People say, I want to be a charter captain. I want to be a tournament fisherman. I say, be careful what you wish for. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM and in Port Huron WPHM 1380 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, sump pumps, cooling, ductwork, cleaning your ductwork, anything you need to keep the mechanics of your house running smoothly, to keep you comfortable, warm, dry, depending on the season. The folks from Wilds can help you out, as they have for me for many years in a couple of different houses now. Check them out online at wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. While you are online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and a couple more for you. One of them, wattabite.com, and Watta is WATTA, wattabite.com. And the other one is MichiganCharterboats.com. Wattabite is the website of Watta Charters of Captain Bill Winowicki, and Bill is the president of the Michigan Charter Boat Association. Bill, I was saying before the break that I hear this all the time. Oh, I'd love to be a tournament fisherman, or I'd love to be a charter fisherman. And I tell people, give that some serious thought, because once you get into it, it's not what it looks like from the outside, is it?
It is not. As you probably know, the process for licensing is quite unique. It's a job to get a license, get through the application process to get a license. Then you gotta, like I say, you gotta be insured. You gotta be a member of an organization like ours to be in a drug pool. And there are so many things to. I mean, fishing is actually the easy part of the whole thing.
Well, when I look at you guys, I mean, you've got different people on the boat, and some of them may be easy to get along with, some not so easy. You got weather conditions, you got fish not wanting to bite sometimes, and then you're running in the summertime 2 a day, so you don't get much sleep. I mean, I just look at it as an exhausting job.
Well, I've always said you have three things. You've either got fish and weather, no people, or weather and people and no fish. It's one of the three. Getting all three to combine together is a major part of the story. But we do have a phenomenal fishery out there. I mean, all the way around the state. We can, if the weather's decent, I mean, usually we can put the people on. I mean, I'm talking everybody around the state can put people on some kind of fish.
You were talking, too, in the first segment. I want to follow up on this. The consent decree negotiations with the tribes. Can you say anything about that at all? Can you give us any details?
I cannot. There are many groups that are members of the Coalition to Protect Michigan Resources. You got the Michigan Charter Boat Association, the Michigan Steelheaders, Hammond Bay. I mean, there's probably, I think, like 15 groups right now involved in the coalition trying to. We are being represented by an attorney who has been dealing with the Traveler Creek since 1980, Stephen Schultz. And this is his last case before he retires, and then he's training a younger attorney to come up named Chris Patterson to take on afterwards. We are under a confidentiality agreement. We cannot discuss the terms of what's going on, but we can discuss what is going on in correspondence with the 2000 decree.
Mm-hmm.
The 2000 decree is 20 years old and it expired August, I think, 27th. We had an extension till January 1st, and now we have an extension all the way to June 30th. Hopefully we can get things together by then. It's been a very, very slow process. And the lakes have changed so much in 20 years. I mean, in the 1985 decree and the 2000 decree, I mean, they were both designed around the tribes would get the whitefish and the sports fishery would get the salmon. And then we sort of split up the lake trout. Well, now in northern Lake Huron and Lake Michigan, the whitefish population is crashing. The salmon population has been cut back to way back. I mean, when you calculate up what the charter industry caught, is like 20 or 30,000 pounds last year. So now you're talking about the way that the decree is written. It's the resources split 50-50 between the tribes and the sports fishery. And then you got the state licensed commercial fishery in there too. And what are you splitting it up? How are you going to split it up? There are gear restrictions, like north of the 45th parallel, you can gill net, south you cannot, or the tribes cannot gill net. The tribes can't catch enough fish. The lake trout are coming back, but they are not fully rehabilitating to where they could sustain themselves. If it wasn't for Fish and Wildlife planting lake trout in the northern part of the lake, it's pretty much a put and take fishery. I mean, so there are so many different factors involved in this decree to where it's actually harder to negotiate than the 2000 decree, because there was fish back then.
Yeah.
The Great Lakes as a whole, I mean, Huron and Michigan, they're only producing about a third of the biomass that they used to produce 20 years ago due to zebra mussels and invasives. I mean, so it's a very tough negotiation. And that sort of surmises what we are working on. I mean, the tribes want more fish. We want to maintain what we have, because they can't, without whitefish, I mean, they're not catching what they should be catching. And how are you going to split it up, and who's going to be allowed to fish where? I mean, people in this state don't understand this. This is, the tribes own that water out there, and we're guests on their water. So the agreement, we have to meet some kind of agreement, and some people, including myself, who fish at 12, right on the line of the gill net and the trap net, right on the 45th parallel. I mean, it's going to be possibly different once we get a settlement.
Well, and you mentioned commercial fishermen. There's also that issue out there on the horizon. I know it kind of got bogged down last year, but that's an interesting situation as well, that the commercial fishermen want access to what has traditionally been sport caught fish.
That is correct. The whitefish population is crashing. The only place there's any whitefish in the Great Lakes is Verdana Seraphin's netting off the thumb there in Saginaw Bay. I mean, he's doing very well there, but the rest of the guys are not doing very well, and they can't sustain their businesses, so they're going after lake trout and perch and walleye. We're trying to hold them back. I mean, we have 3 bills that were presented. Now they passed the House, but they were in the Senate. I mean, they were Senate Bill 4567, 4568, and 4569. And Senator McBroom up in the UP, who is very much advocated to the 13 commercial licenses that are fishing on the Great Lakes, is not very much in favor of these bills. Right before Christmas, we were hoping to get a vote on them and some compromises on them to where we could work together on them, but he came up with 143 new suggestions on these bills as to why we should allow commercial fishing to do pretty much whatever they want. And none of these 143 amendments were sport fish friendly. I mean, if for the general sports fishermen to read something like this, I mean, you'd have chills up and down your spine, because I mean, it would really raise havoc with our sports fishery.
And now you'll have to restart the process with a new state legislature?
From what Amy Trotter told me yesterday, they're waiting for the new state legislature to get sworn in. And then they're going to go back. The MUCC lobbyists go back to Senator McBroom and see if we can start negotiating compromises to his amendments. And I'm not really good on the legislative process. I'm learning as I go here.
You don't trial by fire, Bill.
Boy from up north, so.
Trial by fire, Bill.
Yeah, I got thrown in the fire.
Say, listen, you talked too about the changing fishery. I remember when I used to fish Lake Michigan a lot, and it was downriggers, and if you were real adventurous, maybe you'd put a dipsy out. Man, have things changed out there. Your fishing techniques and tactics don't resemble that at all anymore, do they?
Depending where you fish. I mean, the southern part of the lake, it's a big bowl, and your charter captains go out there and put an 18, 20 line spread in, a combination of half a dozen copper lines on boards and a couple dipsies and a pile of riggers and lead cores. I mean, they cover the whole pattern of the lake. Up where I fish, it's more of a structure-oriented fishery, to where you actually run less lines and you hit a fish and you start spinning around and working that school. Where downstate, they just keep on going because you can't turn real fast when you got a big spread like that out. So
well, and nobody can run more lines than a charter captain. What you guys can do is impressive.
Yeah, like I say, I got a little smaller boat, so I don't run as many of the big guys down there. But like I say, up here we structure fish and we work the winds and hide behind the islands or hide behind the points. We got places to hide down there. They got to have great big boats and they can handle those great big spreads.
Well, maybe you can duck behind an island, but eventually, I mean, the wind is going to hit you one way or another, right? I mean, you got to get out there at least.
We fish every wind out of Glen Arbor except the north wind, and even the north winds affect like the Leland guys and the Frankfurt people. I mean, you get a heavy, hard north wind, it's
you're gonna feel it. Hey, Bill, listen. I got to take a break. Can you stick around with me and do one more segment? I call it the coveted third segment. Are you available for a few more minutes?
Oh, yeah.
All right. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. Continue our conversation with Captain Bill Witowicki of the Michigan Charter Boat Association. The website, michigancharterboats.com. That's michigancharterboats.com. His website for his charter, whatabite.com. More coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the show in Saginaw on WSGW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Great Lakes Charter Training. If you've ever wanted to be a charter captain, I think this is your best option. This is how I got my license, and it was not an easy process, but Captain Mel Stackpool and Captain John Littlefield, who taught the class, made it a little bit easier. They have a series of classes around the state this winter, and we're going right on through this summer, in fact. And I think they also have an online option these days. So check them out online at glctraining.com. That's glctraining.com. Speaking of charter fishing, talking right now with Bill Witowicki, who is the president of the Michigan Charter Boat Association. The website for that, michigancharterboats.com. And then Bill's website for his charter is whatabite.com, WATTA, whatabite.com. Bill, I want to follow up on a couple of things. You mentioned lake trout before. It used to be when there were a bunch of kings out there, people would look down on the lake trout. They'd call them slime balls and greasers. But man, when the salmon fishery crashed, those lake trout certainly became pretty valuable, didn't they?
Yes, they did. And due to the invasives of the goby, they're much better eating. I mean, their meat is a real bright orange, not that white, slimy meat flesh that we used to be when they ate nothing but strictly alewives. I mean, I know up here our spring lake trout their meat is just bright orange, and they're much better eating, much more flavorful.
We used to see those kind of lakers only in Lake Superior, so it's nice to know we're seeing them in other parts of the state now.
Yeah, I mean, the lake trout population, like I say, up north here, it's with the tribal seeded waters, with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, they plant, I think, 2.5 million lake trout up north here every year. And like I say, it's a put and take fishery. These fish get up to 4 to 8 pounds usually, and they're harvested a bunch of them by the tribes. Until you start getting into my area where there's less gill netting, then you start getting into bigger fish. It's really been a lifesaver. But the natural reproduction up north is 3%. I guess down on the state line in southern Michigan, they're starting to see quite a bit of natural reproduction. They're thinking it's like 30 to 40% natural reproduction. So it's nice to hear that part of it's coming back.
Well, and they don't fight like a king, but as we were saying earlier, if you've got people on the boat who aren't familiar with what a big king fights like, a nice laker makes them happy as can be.
You take a little kid, 10, 12 years old, and you hook him up to a 10-pound laker, and he reels that fish in pretty much by himself. His eyeballs get as big as 50-cent pieces when that fish hits the net. I mean, it's phenomenal. I mean, they're just a lifesaver to the charter industry, and they're still a great fish to catch.
You represent, I know you're out of northern Lake Michigan, but your group represents charter captains across the entire state, right?
That is correct. All the Great Lakes. You're right. Erie walleye, Sinclair muskie, and bass and walleye, Saginaw Bay walleye, Northern Lake Huron salmon, Atlantics, lake trout, Superior. I mean, you got your lake trout fishery there and your salmon fishery there. They're not as big. And all the way down to, like I say, the Lake Michigan is the northern part of the lake's pretty much lake trout until August, and then all the way down south where the salmon fishery kicks in really great right around March and April. I mean, there's 600 captains.
And each one of those groups, those geographic areas, has different problems, different demands, different needs. I don't know how you keep track. You know, if you only had to worry about northern Lake Michigan salmon fishermen where you are, it'd be one thing, but you got to worry about everybody in the state.
Yes, we do. I'll give you something that happened here 5-6 years ago. We were working on aquaculture. They were trying hard to put net pens in our Great Lakes, which come with disease and parasites, and with all the problems with invasives, we really didn't need them. At the same time, there was a deal going on in Lake Huron with commercial fishermen. DNR traded him some for his perch licenses, traded him whitefish licenses up in the Thumb area. And, I mean, he's doing very well on whitefish there. And the sports fishery was just phenomenal about getting rid of 4 perch licenses to possibly rehabilitate the perch in Saginaw Bay. And then after all the deal was all said and done, he went and bought up 4 dormant perch fishing licenses. He's back there. And the Saginaw Bay people come down on us hard, say, why didn't you guys do something? I mean, we're not paid to do this job. We're stretched thin as it is. We're all volunteers. I mean, but we dropped the ball on that one quite a bit, but there wasn't a whole lot we could do about it.
Well, there's a lot of different issues going on. This year was a tough year for you guys. I was reading the newsletter, and it looks like your members lost $6 million or something crazy like that. So let's hope 2021 is better, Bill.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, COVID shut the southern part of the lake down. It's for first couple months that southern walleye fishery in Erie and southern salmon fishery on the Michigan side. Those guys all lost anywhere from 20 to 40 trips.
Wow. Listen, Bill, I got to let you go. Listen, I got to let you go. I appreciate your time, though. Bill Winowicki, Captain Bill Winowicki, president of the Michigan Charter Boat Association, the website michigancharterboats.com. Also, check out Bill's charter site, and that's whatabite.com, whatabite.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. And remember, you can always get in touch with me. Send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name's Mike Avery, and I'm so glad to have you along with us. It's kind of an adventure. Each week for 3 hours, we talk about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping here in the great state of Michigan. Why do we do this? Well, we do it because for many of us, it's part of how we grew up. It's almost part of my DNA. I mean, this is who I am. This is what I've done since I was a kid. And I don't go hunting or fishing, especially these days, with the intent of catching fish and bringing them home or of shooting something, of harvesting something. No. But there is that benefit. Sometimes you shoot animals and sometimes you catch fish and bring them home. And that's when my good friend, wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, comes to the forefront, because he is an expert when it comes to fish and wild game, and he helps us wrap up each week's show. David, welcome back. How are you?
Hi, Mike. Thank you for the kind words. It is a great benefit to be out in the woods and bring something home, or out on the rivers or the lakes to bring something home to enjoy.
It is. It kind of it helps you extend that outdoor experience, doesn't it?
It sure does. Say, if you get a deer, you're going to get a lot of meals out of a deer, whether it's a buck or a doe or an elk or something
oh,
like
my
that.
goodness, yeah. Not all of us have been lucky enough to get an elk like you did, Dave.
We got 248 pounds of meat from that girl. I had to buy another freezer.
Well, how about a tiny little rabbit? We can get some good meat out of there, too, right?
Oh, we sure do. I love rabbit, boy. I'm telling you what. This would be a recipe for 4 portions. It'd probably be two rabbits of average size, a medium onion, diced up kind of fine. And you want to cut that rabbit in about 8 pieces, 2 front legs, a couple of cuts across the loin, the back legs. You could cut them in half again, too. So just something that is easily workable, okay? You need 2 ounces of apple schnapps. And if you're not going to use schnapps, I would use a couple of tablespoons of apple jelly, which would be just as good. You need 1 to 2 jars of beef gravy, about 4 or 5 apples peeled and sliced, a couple ounces of heavy cream, a little bit of olive oil, and if you like salt in your diet, use that. And I like fresh ground pepper on this dish, so you're going to do that. Having a cake and grate the pepper all over the rabbit before you dredge it in flour. This would be great over cooked noodles. So, as I said, you're going to cut the rabbit up in about 8 pieces, and you're going to dredge it in the flour. Grade first, you're going to sprinkle a little salt and pepper on it and grade the pepper. Then in flour, in a real nice heavy bottom saute pan with a little bit of olive oil. Shake off all of the flour, brown it on all sides, nice and gentle. Don't go too fast. And then you might have 2, 3, 4 batches of the meat. Wipe it out in between each time. Add that to a casserole. And then you can saute the onions up for just a little while to kind of break the flavor loose. Return the rabbit, or you're going to not return the rabbit, but you're going to put the apple schnapps all over the apple schnapps or the apple jelly. Put that in the pan. If it's jelly, you're going to melt it down a little bit along with the onions. Cook that for just a bit. Add the brown gravy. Bring that up to a boil. Taste it and see if this is what you're looking for. If it is, you want to pour this over the rabbit in the casserole. It's going to take at least an hour. So after about an hour, you want to add the apples and the heavy cream in there, and you're going to cook it for a few minutes more. The more you cook it, the more the apples are going to kind of crumble up and kind of cook into the meal, the dish. So you want to have a little integrity. So you'll only do about 10 or 15 minutes in the oven. And it's just unbelievable great. You can serve this over buttered noodles or rice or whatever you care for. It makes it like a great stew. You can use squirrel with this, too.
Could you?
Yeah.
What about, would grouse work in this, too?
You definitely could. Definitely. You could actually cut up your turkey using the thighs and the legs in this, too. That would, because you're going to just cook it a lot longer, and it would come out really good also. Pretty much any of the small game. Woodchuck would be great, too.
Yeah, well, only if you cook it. I don't think I want woodchuck that somebody else cooked up, Dave.
Well, woodchuck it tastes like a great big rabbit.
Does it really?
They eat the same thing. They go into hibernation first, they come out first. They only eat nice tender stuff. So woodchuck is a very clean animal.
Well, and I know from knowing you over the years, though, you will look at, you'll cook up muskrats, you'll cook up bobcat, coyote, Asian carp. You made Asian carp for me one time. You have no bounds.
Yeah. I tried to get lamprey, too, if you remember. They were going to bring me some from a tramp up in, I think on the Betsy or something, but they never did. When we were doing invasive species show.
I'm glad they didn't do that, Dave.
Well, I got great recipes.
Oh, I know you do. Great recipes, great skills, and a great guy. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. I appreciate him joining us every week. Dave and I have worked together since the days of the Outdoor Magazine television show. Appreciate you joining us this week on this week's show. Don't forget to check out my podcast network where we do all the different podcasts. Also, Wednesday night live on my social media outlets. I do something live from the studio here on Wednesday mornings as well. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can send me an email to Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My wish for you this week is to get outside, maybe do a little ice fishing if the ice is safe in your part of the state. I don't know, whatever it is, just get out, get some fresh air, get away from all the bad news, get away from the electronic screens, breathe some fresh air, and have some fun. And I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.